He wasn't just another rapper coming out of California, he was the guy people said was carrying the entire West Coast on his back. In the mid-2000s, when the region desperately needed a new voice to compete with the East and the South, the Game exploded onto the scene. With the backing of Dr. Dre and the cosign of 50 Cent, he became the face of Compton, the man who promised to restore that gritty West Coast dominance. He had the bars, he had the look, and most importantly, he had the machine behind him. His debut album, The Documentary, dropped in 2005 and instantly put him in the conversation with the best in the game. Hate It or Love It and How We Do were everywhere, and the Game seemed like the chosen one. But almost as quickly as he rose, cracks started to show. The problem was the Game himself. From the start, he was known for being difficult to work with. Even while enjoying the G-Unit cosign, he didn't want to play by the rules. At a time when loyalty and rap crews mattered more than anything, he refused to pick sides. When 50 Cent and G-Unit had beef with Jadakiss, Fat Joe, and Nas, the Game openly said he wanted to work with them. To 50, that was straight betrayal. Then came disputes over credit. 50 claimed he wrote multiple hooks and verses for the documentary and felt like the Game wasn't giving him his due. Game denied it, but the tension kept boiling. Eventually on Hot 97, 50 Cent went live and announced that the Game was officially out of G-Unit. That moment changed everything. From there, it turned ugly. Diss tracks flew in every direction. The Game responded with 300 bars and running, a marathon of insults aimed at G-Unit and others. 50 fired back with Piggy Bank, mocking him on record and in videos. And it wasn't just music. Outside Hot 97 in 2005, shots were fired after the Game, and his crew tried to storm the building following 50's announcement. One of the Game's people ended up in the hospital. What started as a dream alliance between New York's hottest crew and the West Coast's next superstar turned into a war almost overnight. The narrative shifted. Instead of being Dre's protege and 50's right-hand man, the Game became the rapper who couldn't stay loyal, the guy who picked fights with the very people who put him on. And while that image kept him relevant, it also tarnished him. Fans started questioning whether he was genuine or just chasing beef to stay in headlines. But to his credit, the Game didn't disappear after the G-Unit fallout. He pushed forward with solo albums like Doctor's Advocate, which came out in 2006 and earned critical respect even without Dre's direct production. Over the next few years, he carved out a lane for himself, building a fan base that appreciated his gritty storytelling and his relentless name-dropping style. By the early 2000s, he looked like he was finally shaking off the reputation of being difficult. Jesus Peace in 2012 gave him a resurgence, especially with the single Ali Bamai featuring Rick Ross and 2 Chainz. That track was a monster, and suddenly the Game was back in clubs, back on playlists, and back in conversations. He was also connecting with some of the biggest names in rap at the time. Collaborations with Future, Rick Ross, Kendrick Lamar, and others gave him credibility again. For a moment, it seemed like the story had turned around. The kid from Compton who almost threw it all away looked like he was back on track, but just as things were stabilizing, controversy found him again. First came the smaller criticisms. People noticed he was recycling freestyles, spitting the same verses in different places as if they were brand new. In the hip-hop world, that's a quick way to lose respect. Freestyling is supposed to be raw, unpredictable, and unique. To hear the Game repeat material over and over made it seem like he was cutting corners. While that alone wasn't enough to sink him, it chipped away at his authenticity, which was the very thing his career was built on. Then came the far bigger scandal. In 2015, while starring in his VH1 reality dating show She's Got Game, a contestant named Priscilla Rainey accused him of sexually assaulting her. She claimed that during filming he groped her without consent. The case went to trial, and in 2016, a jury found the Game liable, awarding Rainey over $7 million. This wasn't just bad press, this was catastrophic. Not only did it permanently damage his public image, it also left him financially crippled. Years later, he still hasn't paid the judgment, and courts have ordered the sale of his property to cover the debt. No matter how much music he drops, that case follows him everywhere, and it's arguably the single biggest stain on his reputation. After that, his career never fully recovered. He kept releasing albums, mixtapes, and singles, but the energy wasn't the same. Fans started associating him less with being the savior of West Coast rap and more with lawsuits, recycled bars, and drama. Even when he did put out solid music, the noise around him drowned it out. And then, in what many see as his final desperate move, the Game decided to go after Eminem. In 2022, he dropped a 10-minute diss track called The Black Slim Shady. On paper, it was bold. Eminem is one of the few rappers who has always been considered untouchable. But the execution backfired. Instead of coming across as dangerous or witty, it felt like a parody. The game spent most of the track imitating Eminem's style, mocking his voice, and throwing personal jabs at his family. For a rapper who once went viral praising Eminem as the best to ever do it, the sudden flip felt fake. Fans immediately called him two-faced. Critics tore it apart, saying it sounded more like a cry for attention than a legitimate challenge. The diss also looked jealous. Earlier that year, Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, Eminem, 50 Cent, Mary J. Blige, and Kendrick Lamar performed at the Super Bowl halftime show. Everyone noticed the game wasn't invited. He publicly complained about it, saying he felt disrespected, and then months later, he dropped the Eminem diss. The timing made it look like bitterness, like he was lashing out because he was left off the biggest stage. Instead of reviving his career, it only highlighted how far he had fallen. By this point, his commercial performance had slipped too. His 2022 album Drillmatic was hyped as a major comeback, but it sold the fewest copies of any project in his career. Even with features and promotion, it just didn't connect. That showed the reality. The fan base had moved on, and the controversies outweighed the music. Now when people talk about the game, they don't bring up his classic debut, or the way he once put Compton back on the map. They bring up the endless beefs, the lawsuit, the debt, and the strange diss at Eminem. His reputation has gone from being the next great hope of West Coast rap to being seen as one of hip-hop's cautionary tales, someone who had all the talent, all the connections, all the backing, but couldn't get out of his own way. The game's story is frustrating because he really did have everything lined up for him. Few rappers get signed to Dr. Dre and immediately handed a spot in G-Unit at their peak. Few debut albums hit as hard as the documentary. He was supposed to be untouchable, but his inability to play as part of a team, his constant need for beef, and his personal controversies eroded all of it. Instead of loyalty, he was branded as disloyal. Instead of being known for timeless hits, he became known for repeating bars. Instead of building wealth, he's in the headlines for unpaid judgments. And instead of being remembered as the man who carried the West Coast into the new era, he's remembered as the rapper who destroyed his own reputation. Today, you barely hear from the game outside of social media rants or legal updates. He still has hardcore fans, but the mainstream has moved on. The new generation doesn't see him as a leader or a pioneer. They see him as someone who wasted his potential. His legacy isn't gone completely. The documentary is still a classic, but it's hard to separate the music from the drama. In the end, the game is proof that in hip-hop, talent alone isn't enough. You can be one of the best, you can have Dre and 50 Cent backing you, you can have hits and momentum, but if you're constantly burning bridges, getting into legal trouble, and making desperate moves, eventually the music isn't what people remember. They remember the controversies, and that's how the game destroyed his reputation. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you never miss another deep dive like this.